It's the John Cena US Open Challenge, where everybody's eligible.
Everybody's eligible.
From janitors to referees, even that guy at work who won't shut up about his kids when you have a deadline. And it's like, bro, I have to knock this out before noon. Besides, your son isn't the only child in the world who knows how to sing Baba Black Sheep. He's 7. By this point, he should be able to memorize entire cuts by 2 Chainz. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a spreadsheet to finish.
Spreading out that sheet.
It's the John Cena US Open Challenge. Everybody's eligible.
Everybody's eligible.
Like my pet goldfish, your pet gerbil. Right on down to that guy at work who insists on having a conversation with you when you're both in the John taking a whiz. And it's like, bro, let's not make this any more awkward than it already is. Are you seriously trying to make eye contact, bro? You do realize my junk is in your periphery. This is only deteriorating the already complex dynamic between two coworkers who spend their livelihood sizing each other up before one of them ultimately puts themselves in the best possible position to stab the other in the back.
Twisting on that knife.
The John Cena US Open Challenge. Your grandmother is eligible.
80 years young.
So are scientists, bartenders, exotic dancers, and that chick at work who wears way too much perfume. And it's like, bro, tell me why I can smell you from all the way over here. Is there a reason your scent needs to be in my life right now? We've literally never spoken. I've never even met you. How could I? You're all the way in our headquarters office in North Dakota.
Pinning up those quarters.
The John Cena US Open Challenge. Everybody's eligible.
Everybody's eligible.
Even Deep Throat Steve.
What?
Listen to PodNasty on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/AKONUWA. It is Alfred Big Nasty Kunawa. On this April 16th, 2015, it's also Chakri Day, as well as Tartan Day. Go figure. And today we have a very special guest. He's a lead writer. My cohort here at the Bleacher Report website, just known as BleacherReport.com, not the Bleacher Report. Mr. Ryan Dilbert from the WWE has joined us. How are you doing, Ryan?
Great, thanks for having me, man.
Now, we're going to get into a lot of different stuff, a lot of fun stuff. Last week, Ryan, myself, and 3 other writers, so a combination of 5 columnists from Bleacher Report, participated in a WWE Draft in the spirit of the NFL Draft coming up at the end of the month. A lot of surprising picks, a lot of interesting picks. You know, yours truly had to go against the grain, and it was a lot of fun, and we're going to get into that. But I just wanted to know, how's everything going? You were telling me that there's a storm currently going on out there in Houston?
Yesterday, it looks like we borrowed the weather from London this week, just trying to make it through.
Oh, that's ridiculous, because I was talking about how out here in Southern California there's a drought, and I mean, you wouldn't believe when the weather gets to around 58 degrees out here, they cover it like it's a storm. I mean, you'll see the weather channels looking at the sun. The sun graphics are out, but it's a little cloudy, and they'll say, when is this storm going to be over? And you're probably out there in Houston like, I'll show you a storm.
Yeah, it's the same way. People panic. If it's a little bit wet on the road, if people forget how to drive, and it's just so alien to them.
And that's what I can't stand about the rain is people, they always slow down, and traffic is already bad enough out here in Los Angeles. But if it rains, you're not going anywhere for hours. Doesn't matter if, there is a Taco Bell 2 miles down the road from me, but if I want a chalupa, I'm going to have to wait an hour because people are just going to park and maybe drive a little bit up to make sure that they don't slip off the road. I don't know, what is it about the rain that makes people such bad drivers?
I wish I knew. I just drive a little safer, but in general, I don't think people know how to drive. So I'm glad to be a full-time writer now and avoid that for the most part.
You only need you only need your wrist and a pen and maybe a laptop. I don't know if you don't need a car to be a great columnist, and you are a very good one.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, some of the news that has came down this past week, I'm going to start with something very, very surprising, that Shawn Michaels has discussed that WWE is trying to get him to work WrestleMania 32. Now, it's not too surprising from the standpoint that Shawn Michaels is from Texas. I'm sure every year WWE comes to him with an offer as to what he can do in a ring, one more match. There are some intriguing options out there for Shawn Michaels. I'm surprised because I think Shawn Michaels sounds like he might be considering it. Do you think we see Shawn Michaels in a wrestling ring in 2016?
I wish we would. I don't think so, though. Every time I hear an interview with him, he's saying, I enjoy being retired. I like this, and I can't blame him. But selfishly, I'd like to see him come back for at least one or two more. But I don't think so.
I don't really think so either. Shawn Michaels is one of those rare cases. Guys who, once they said they were done, they went away and you never saw them again. You never saw him wrestle a competitive match. He's done some stuff as far as even the spot as recently as WrestleMania 31 where he super kicked Sting. I'm sure they pay him a pretty penny just to kick a guy in the face. It's a good deal. But Shawn Michaels has stayed true to the fact that it's funny and it's kind of ironic that he was a guy who retired Ric Flair. And Ric Flair said he'd never wrestle after facing Shawn Michaels. And he hasn't wrestled in WWE, but he's been around, whether it's TNA, whether it's Japan. Shawn Michaels, after wrestling The Undertaker, has never wrestled since. But you've just got to believe as he gets away from it, there's a certain part of him that misses what he does in the ring. Is there not?
I would think so. It seems like he had other stuff going on, He had that hunting show. He was very religious. I feel like some guys, when they stop, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to occupy their time or get them that drive. So, like Ric Flair, for example, he is 100% wrestling. I don't know if he knows how to do anything else. So,
isn't that scary? Isn't that scary that wrestlers tend to get institutionalized? And that's a great example. Ric Flair, it's like prison. I'll give you another one. Scott Steiner. I mean, he's officially gone crazy. He's officially Scott Steiner now. He's not the real person who became Scott Steiner. He is a crazy person who reportedly goes up to people's wives and tells them that he's going to have some words for him, brother, if they see him in the streets. And why is that? Is it because of the schedule day to day that wrestlers go through that they eventually become their characters? Because this seems like a disease, and it's very healthy for Shawn Michaels to do what he's doing and get away with that.
Yeah, and there's also this blending of reality and character. Because if you're Billy Crystal, you're playing another person. But if you're Stone Cold, you're playing you amplified. So I can see how that gets mixed up and how that gets blended.
Yeah.
You probably just try to separate it after a while.
Absolutely. I mean, and you would think that if wrestling is all you're doing for 10 years and then you go away from it, you're doing it for 300 days a year, my general advice would be like, okay, when you're done, just take a break. Just relax, be with your family, blah, blah, blah. But now, the way I've seen some of these wrestlers become caricatures of themselves, I would advise, go start doing everything else other than wrestling. Go start a podcast like Jericho and Austin. Go start a hunting show. Go do anything else other than wrestling, but keep yourself busy to the point where it's taking your mind off of wrestling.
Or go train for the UFC.
There you go. That's the exact opposite of wrestling. Train for the UFC. Go jump off of a cliff. Go, just get a hobby. Just get a habit. Start smoking some crack. I don't know. Just get a hobby.
That's right.
Now, Shawn Michaels, one of his proteges, Daniel Bryan, reportedly not doing too well. WWE did confirm that they are pulling him from the remainder of the European tour. If you've seen, since WrestleMania, he's been protected in group matches, tag team matches, six-man matches, and apparently the problems that plagued him last year, from neck problems to arm problems, are starting to creep back up. I personally was surprised and pretty much shocked that he came back as early as he did in December. What are your thoughts on Daniel Bryan's current health situation, and does this validate WWE for going away from him this past year during the Royal Rumble, when there was a lot of controversy that he didn't win?
Yeah, I definitely think it does, because when they went with Roman Reigns in my head, I was like, this must be because they're worried about Bryan not holding up. And, it looks like they're right so far. I mean, I was always nervous, but like you said, when he came back, it felt really soon. And there was all those reports about his arm not being at full strength, and it was a really scary update. For him to go right back into the mix, it was surprising. But then I kind of almost forgot about the injury. He looked so good. He was doing so well. Now that it's come out again, it's like, yeah, we probably should have seen this coming.
Yeah, and what's kind of chilling is this is around the same time that Daniel Bryan was having problems last year and had to forfeit the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So, I mean, could you imagine if WWE would have caved again, they would have pretty much been running into the exact same situation. And Daniel Bryan, who knows, maybe he does forfeit the title again just a month after winning it. And if that would have happened, I think fans begin to sour on Daniel Bryan and then maybe even begin to turn on him, and it would really damage his career. But, I mean, I really hope he's okay. Like you said, I think he looks fine. But this just kind of continues to play into that underdog role, that he's kind of a hard luck guy who's always going to fight the good fight. And if he's able to heal for a little bit and come back, people are still going to be behind him.
Yeah, but I am a little afraid that he's going to get this snake bit label the way that Ziggler seems to have gotten, where it feels like the WWE is afraid to put him in a big spot because he's had these injuries before, which I don't think is necessarily fair, but you can see why they would be so cautious.
Yeah, it's not fair, but it's understandable. I mean, WWE invests a lot into these talents. They do have just a boiling over of great talent in NXT who are eventually going to assimilate onto the main roster. So if you got a guy with Daniel Bryan who has a very serious history of injuries and is now starting to show some wear and tear, especially with the neck area, I mean, you're going to want to do everything you can to make sure that if he's wrestling, he's 100%, and if he's not 100%, he's not wrestling. Because, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but we just saw the tragedy with this Perros Aguayo Jr., and that was a neck issue. That was a cervical injury. And we would never want to see anything close to that, whether it's paralysis, whether it's another serious injury that affects his quality of life. We don't want to see that with Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we don't want to see him have the same issues as Edge, where time after time, taking on his damage to the neck, and then it has a very serious issue right after. Take it easy. There's a lot of talent. They don't need to have him wrestle all the time right now. I heard this report earlier, and then you would see him being protected. Like you said, why is he wrestling at all?
Right.
If you're really concerned, let's pull him out.
Yeah, it's funny. I came out with a column, it was 2 days ago, like right before this report came out. I said, you see John Cena, and he's defending the U.S. title every week. I have my thoughts about that, but I like the fact that they're at least making the U.S. title mean something, or they're trying to. They're putting it with John Cena, but then you compare that with Daniel Bryan, and outside of the night after Raw or WrestleMania, he hasn't done anything. And I was just asking, why hasn't Daniel Bryan been defending this title the way John Cena has? It's not helping the division, but obviously it's because of his problems. And so it's just very interesting, but it seems like deja vu, and I hope he's okay. What do you see for Daniel Bryan long term? Do you think he's wrestling? What do you think he's doing at WrestleMania 32? Do you think he's wrestling? Do you think he's on his way to retirement? How close to the main event do you see him?
It's hard to not see it through the lens of my heart, because I want him to be at the top. I want him to be healthy, but at the same time, I have been and I am very nervous about his future, and I wouldn't be shocked if he had to retire really young.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think Daniel Bryan, I mean, a lot of people have their theories. I think Daniel Bryan might have been the target of Bray Wyatt's recent string of promos, only because recently he said, and I don't know if this has been spoiled yet because I haven't seen SmackDown. Bray Wyatt talked about love and dedication on his most recent promo, and you look at dedication. Daniel Bryan and the S Movement, they were dedicated to having him go to the top of the card, and love. We all know about Daniel Bryan, Brie Bella. Who do you think is the person Bray Wyatt is talking about?
Well, I'm definitely with you. I was listening to it again today. There's so much mention of love. That sounds like Daniel Bryan. I mean, just like the fans loving him, the fans adoring him. But when he turns around at the end there's this snake-like image on his jacket. Some kind of flickering tongue coming out of a demon's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me think maybe that's some veiled reference to Randy Orton.
Oh.
But the love stuff doesn't make as much sense.
It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to love about Randy Orton. Randy Orton is the coldest character in terms of, and I'm not saying this bad way, I love Orton, but I mean, he's a cold soul.
Yeah, so that threw me off. So I definitely was thinking Bryan, which means that they're planning something after Extreme Rules and something they're going to have to probably change if Bryan's out for a while.
That is very interesting, and it would, there's probably a couple of things that you would have to just gloss over, but I didn't even notice that was a snake or a serpent with its tongue out. I'm going to have to go back and look, but yeah, Randy Orton would be along that echelon of talent that Bray Wyatt would have to feud with, because he's coming off a feud against The Undertaker, and so you want his next feud to not seem like it's a drop. Like I heard somebody say it might be Ryback based on the dedication stuff. I like Ryback. He's got some promise and whatnot left, but I hope it's not him. I hope it's not a mid-carder. I hope it's somebody who's just in the main event. And yeah, you can see that. Maybe they'll do another spot with smoke and mirrors, and he'll come out and cost him the title.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think Ryback or someone like that is a step down. I mean, it's hard. He was feuding with John Cena, Daniel Bryan, with Undertaker, then to do Ryback seems a bit strange, but it wouldn't shock me. Not a lot of options at this point.
And what I notice about you talking about Bray Wyatt is you saying something that I've done as well. You've gone back and you've looked at his promos. I've even read them to see them in words. Is there anything that I'm missing here? I rarely do that with anybody. I mean, I love Paul Heyman promos, but I'll go back and watch him because he's so entertaining. I'm not really trying to read into anything. I just want to see it. Bray Wyatt, he's so cryptic that you have to go back and look. And a lot of people complain about it, but I love it because A, it gets on people's nerves and he's a heel. It's what you're supposed to do. And B, it causes us to think. What do you think about Bray Wyatt's cryptic style?
I think, like you said, it is interesting to go back and kind of piece it apart. So it requires the patience. I do wish he would be a little more focused during the feuds. When he was with Ambrose, I wasn't sure what he wanted from Ambrose or what he was trying to do or say. He was saying so many things. I think it's because he's so talented. He's like this great writer that he wants to use all of his tricks. And sometimes the best stuff is just straightforward and simple. Like Ambrose, I want to... Right. Like John Cena, I want to destroy your legacy.
Right.
Like that was the big thing. And I thought that was missing with Ambrose, and I feel that gets missing sometimes because he is so good and he wants to explore all these things. So that's why I'd like to see a little more distinctness at times, but I am definitely a big fan of his work, and I think he's second really right now to Heyman as a mic worker, so that's saying a lot.
He is very talented individual, and you see he took a gimmick that was pretty much the same gimmick that Waylon Mercy used in the 90s, and that gimmick bombed badly, but that speaks to the talent of Bray Wyatt, is how good he is. He was able to make that same gimmick work, and now people are taking it seriously as just a top-level gimmick. I still think he should have beat The Undertaker. What do you think about his loss to The Undertaker?
I was fine with the loss. I felt like they could have done something where he attacked him afterwards, or he he attacks someone else afterwards just to kind of counterbalance it. But he is losing a lot of these feuds, and he's like this monster who promises to destroy, and then he hasn't done a lot of destroying. So, that I think that needs to change a little bit.
He's getting around to it, He's going to any day now. There'll be destruction. That's a very funny observation. Now, the Usos tag team hopes are going to be somewhat dashed, if not destroyed, for the next 6 months, as Jey Uso is going to be going under shoulder surgery. He's going to be out for about 6 months. Where does Jimmy Uso go from here? I can't imagine WWE just keeping him out as long as his brother's gone, because Jimmy is actually a very gregarious guy, very charismatic. I don't watch too much Total Divas, but I pay attention to it. And Jimmy's very funny. And he's married to Naomi, and we just saw Naomi turn heel. Is there anything you think WWE can do with him, or would you rather them just keep him to the side until the Usos return?
Actually, I wrote about this earlier today because I had that same question.
Saw that.
I don't want to see him be turned into Curtis Axel when Ryback went under surgery last year. I had one idea where he was looking for a temporary replacement tag team partner. So he was just paired with a bunch of different guys in the meantime. So these brief alliances, pairing him with Neville or Dean Ambrose, and just kind of having fun with it. Just knowing, he's not going to replace his brother. It's just something to do in the meantime. And also, with the tag division right now being so thin, it's hard to imagine them taking a whole team out. So
sure.
To have sort of this replacement team or teams, I think would be one option for sure.
That'd be great. That'd be good to see Jimmy Uso just pair with others. I also think it would be good to just take advantage of his personality, which he does have a big one. What about what they're doing with Tyson Kidd? The way they brought Tyson Kidd on screen, very unassuming. He was just kind of his wife's sidekick, but then he eventually became so entertaining that now he's a tag team champion, and the roles are reversed. And Natalya is back to the managerial role of Tyson. What about having him maybe as a foil to Naomi as a heel? He's just kind of the level-headed husband who's telling her, listen, you don't have to be this evil. And then that will tell fans that Naomi is really, truly being this evil human being, that she's not, she's better than this. And I think Jimmy Uso can help tell that story. What do you think about him? Maybe it does sound like an emotion, but going to the Divas division and working with Naomi and maybe being by her side.
I would definitely be behind that. Like you said, it's a reversal of roles. So often the women are the ones who are the add-ons to the men. So having that reverse is good. But Naomi isn't necessarily evil in my mind, but she's just really angry and really focused.
Sure.
So it makes sense that she has this good voice in her ear trying to tell her, hey, stop going so far to the dark side, and they could play with that. They could have her become more and more of a true heel, and then use him in that way. So, yeah, definitely behind something like that.
And you're right. Maybe evil isn't the word to describe her, but here's what I like about Naomi as a heel right now, is she had that great promo that she cut about why she did what she did. Mm-hmm. The best heels always have a great reason as to why they're heels. They're right, but they're doing it in an obnoxious fashion. I think that's why it worked with Jericho. Everything Jericho said in 2008 about Shawn Michaels lying and him being an honest man, he was right, but he was being very sanctimonious about it. And that's what I love about Naomi. That's why I think she's going to work as a heel. What do you think about her as a heel in the Divas division moving forward?
It definitely surprised me that they went that direction, because she seemed like a very natural babyface, but like you said, that promo was really good. It's the best that I've seen her from a personality standpoint. So I think she can do this well. But I was looking today, kind of breaking down who she could fight against other than Paige. There's just not a lot of baby faces in the Divas division right now. So I just think they need to balance that out. Have someone turn or bring in someone from NXT, because other than Emma, is anyone else. Emma and Paige. I don't know if there's another face.
Right, and Paige, I've read, is going to be off TV for the next month filming a movie.
Exactly.
And you're right. Now that I think about it, there really aren't. I'm actually trying to go through my brain. Who's out there as a baby? I mean, Natalya is, by association, a heel. So, yeah, you're right. They would need to do something like that. And, I mean, it wouldn't be forced because those divas have been ready for a while now in NXT.
Exactly. And this would be a great time to bring up Charlotte. Like you said, this Paige is going to be out. So we'll see. But she's going to need someone to go up against.
Absolutely.
Not just a bunch of heels.
And she also needs a new finisher. Can we agree on that?
Her and Mojo both.
You think there's a lawsuit going on there for gimmick infringement? And you know, neither of them hire a lawyer because they both want to lose that case?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like moves that revolve around the buttocks.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, you have to, yeah. You're absolutely right. You have to suspend your disbelief, but come on. Now, before we get into the draft, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Briscoes, who will be sticking with ROH. There was talk for months that there were flirtations with WWE. But apparently Triple H and company, the brass, did not want the Briscoes in WWE. I'm not sure the level of truth that is, but what I know is that the Briscoes are re-signing. Me personally, I think they could have worked in WWE. I thought they could have been very good because they're so different from anything WWE has in terms of hicks. I mean, not just Southern guys. WWE has Southern guys, but you know, you look at them, you listen to them. They are straight out of the South, and it's so risky. I know, and you know, they've had those homosexual remarks that they made on Twitter. I think that, as terrible as that is, there's no place for that in WWE, but that kind of plays into their gimmick. I mean, what do you think about the potential of the Briscoes if they were in the WWE?
I'm with you. I think they're so different and so engaging. It would have been, a big asset. I was pulling for them for a long time to come. A little worried about how the promos would be in a PG setting because they're so used to just going and saying whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why you pay some of them NXT a little bit, just get them used to toning it down. But I'm big fans of theirs. They're just so. And there's so much presence, and they stand out more than a lot of teams. I was pretty disappointed to hear that they're not coming here. So we'll see, but it's a big asset for Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just you look at guys like that, and WWE does have a history, especially when you're from the South, of making Southern characters kind of cartoons. To where it's your crazy uncle from the marsh. So they're not really these realistic, scary characters that are borderline skinheads or anything like that. They're just like, hey, it's crazy Uncle Zeb or something like that. But can you imagine Zeb Coulter with the Briscoes? I mean, think of the potential of that.
Oh, I know. And I also was thinking maybe Bray Wyatt could bring them up as a second set of followers.
Oh, my God.
He ties in pretty well. But, you can dream, but it's not happening. So.
Yeah, they've got the beards. And that's where it's always frustrating. The thing about Samoa Joe, I like Samoa Joe. But when you think of where is his entry point in the WWE? I really don't know. I mean, there's enough characters like that. You got the Usos, you got Roman Reigns. WWE might be tempted to make him like another Umaga. I don't know what his entry point would be in WWE. I could see him working in NXT, but long term, what's he going to do? With the Briscoes, I mean, there are so many different things. You have a great idea with Bray Wyatt. I think it would be great to put him with Zeb Coulter. They could operate on their own in the tag team division. I mean, there's so many things, and such a missed opportunity to me. And it's unfortunate what they did. I don't condone of what they did on social media, but I mean, they would be so great, I think, in the WWE, especially in a corporate environment. Just so much fun. Now, I had a lot of fun with our WWE draft last week. We, about 5 of us got together, drafted our teams, and pretty much if you could lay down the scenario and the guidelines for our draft, what type of talents were we able to draft? What were the limitations? Go ahead.
Okay, well, I imagine a scenario where the WWE was going out of business, and all the writers had enough money to start our own promotion, and we got to pick from the roster NXT guys, divas, managers, anybody who's on the staff in a fantasy football style draft to split up the talent. And a lot of that I wanted to see the different perspectives on where these guys are going to be. I mean, we all see different things, and I think that's definitely what came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, it was about 7 rounds that we had. So each columnist got 7 wrestlers based on a host of factors. I mean, there's an article up right now on Bleacher Report of the Bleacher Report WWE and NXT Fantasy Draft. And I really like how you broke it down, infusing the perspective of you, WWE, how they view these guys right now, and then why each columnist might have picked somebody. Because we were on G-Chat, we were talking trash, we were giving our perspective as to why we did what we did. I want to get into your draft. Your first overall pick was Bray Wyatt. I mean, I heard you talk about how much you loved Bray Wyatt. And it looks like you said your surprise pick was Randy Orton. Why do you think Randy Orton was a surprise pick for you?
I think that, among fans on the internet, he's just dismissed so often and kind of undervalued in a lot of ways. I think people maybe would have expected someone from NXT or someone younger because he is, in his mid-30s. But at the same time, I think he feels older than he is because he's been around so long.
Mm-hmm.
So he still has, good probably 8 years ahead of him. So, and there's also I think people undervalue his life skills. He gets labeled boring, talks too slow. I think he's dependable in that department, and a lot better than a lot of guys. So definitely went for him.
Yeah, and I equate him to like a Kobe Bryant. Somebody, like you said, he started very young, so it seems like he's been around for much longer. But again, you still got a guy who's in his mid-30s. Still, I mean, I think he's still in his prime. He's still one of the top 4, if not top 3, when it comes to just natural workers in the ring. Randy Orton could have a great match with anybody. So your roster is Bray Wyatt, in order. Bray Wyatt, Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler, Bad News Barrett, Paul Heyman, and Baron Corbin. I thought you went a little early on Daniel Bryan, and we're hearing about all of his health problems right now. Is that something that, with the news of right now, would you go back and still draft Daniel Bryan in the 2nd round?
I would be a bit more hesitant. I mean, I knew there was the injury risk, but he's just such a good worker, and he has a connection with the crowd that is real rare. You don't see people react that strongly that often. That's so rare. I think it's worth the risk to just go, even if it's just around for 2 or 3 more years. Just so good at so many things, and special in a lot of ways that you think you got to put him in there.
Now, even though you did draft Daniel Bryan, you did say that you would have Dolph Ziggler be your number 1 babyface, Bad News Barrett be your number 1 heel. Explain your reasoning behind that, why it would be Dolph Ziggler as a choice. I can understand Bad News Barrett as a heel, but why would those be your top 2 guys in terms of babyface and heel?
Well, I meant they could be there, not necessarily all the time. Maybe Bryan would sneak up. But both Bryan and Ziggler would work in that spot. But I think Ziggler, like Bryan, is really good in the ring. He has a strong fan base, and he's funny and engaging on
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
don't feel like he's been given a true chance to be on top, and I'd like to see what he could do in that spot.
That'd be very interesting. I think Dolph Ziggler would be a good choice as a potential top babyface. And you're right, he's funny. He actually does study a lot of comedy. He comes out here in the Southern California area whenever he's here, and he does improv shows with the likes of John Morris and whatnot, and he's hilarious. He's a very funny guy off his feet and whatnot. So it would be good to see. One of my favorite picks of yours is Baron Corbin. You got him in the last round. If you watch NXT, you'll see Baron Corbin is NXT's equivalent to Roman Reigns. And I've always said, if he escapes the wrath of NXT, he could be something in WWE because people see that they're giving him this push. He doesn't have an indie record, so they're starting to turn on him. But what I've noticed is if you see things in NXT that are really over, they have a hard time translating to WWE because it's two different audiences. The hipsters out there in NXT. So Adam Rose struggled. Emma struggled. Paige in her first couple of months struggled. But I think if you see the Lucha Dragons, even Neville is an indie guy, but there's only so much of that love to go around, and he was a heel for his last few months in NXT. He's doing a good job on WWE. I think Lucha Dragons, they were treated like the Geico Lizards in NXT, which was a chant, but they're doing a great job. I think Baron Corbin could be one of those guys who, I mean, you got him late, but he could be a top star, don't you think?
Yeah, I think he has a lot of potential. I'm not sure what he's going to be because he seems still really raw. And I think that's why they're partly why they're putting him in such short matches all the time. Because he probably can't work that much longer matches, but they're like you did with Roman Reigns, when he was with the Shield, he was nowhere near as good as he is now. And he has gotten a lot better. So there's ways to get him in there, maybe with a group, maybe just being patient, but I feel like he has a super high ceiling, and I would definitely take a chance on him.
Right, and I think it would be a good chance, and it's not even that much of a chance because you got him so late, and he's a guy who I think that could translate and pay you good dividends, and that's what a draft is all about, and that was my philosophy when I did my draft. I looked at it like a stock market, okay? If somebody gave me $1 million to invest, I'm not buying blue chippers like Google and Apple and Starbucks that, you know they're going to be stable, but they're going to give you a little return. I'm getting like Tesla. I'm getting the stocks that I think are going to be huge 5 years from now, buy them on the cheap, and, have a great return on investment in years to come. So let me read off of my draft. I took Seth Rollins first overall. Would have taken Roman Reigns, but he actually was the number 1 overall pick, which that tells you, WWE might be onto something here. So I go Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Rusev, Big E, and then it gets interesting. And then I go Bo Dallas, Jason Jordan, who he is an active competitor in NXT, and Chris Jericho, who's going to be like my Terry Funk, the veteran, who competes with the younger guys to give them credibility, maybe even loses to all of them. I know you said on Twitter you wanted to hear me explain why I took Jason Jordan. Again, it's a game of buying low and selling high, and I watch a lot of NXT. Sometimes I go over these episodes because they're so short, I go over and watch them again, and I've just noticed whenever Jason Jordan's on television, it's the same as how they treated The Rock, where they're talking about, this guy's got all the tools, and even when he was in that tag team, they just focused on him, and he just looks the part. I'm really upset they cut his hair, because he had this crazy haircut that made him look different from everybody else. I think this is a guy who 5 years from now could be an upper echelon star. I mean, what surprised you? What was you said Bo Dallas was my most surprising pick. Can you get into that a little bit more?
Well, I feel like WWE has kind of given up on him already. And when people talk about who are the underused guys, the emerging guys, that people say Cesaro, they say Ziggler, Tyson Kidd, you don't hear Bo Dallas' name in that conversation a lot. So I feel like that's a surprise to see you see that kind of potential in him.
Absolutely.
What drew you to him?
The thing about Bo Dallas is I loved Bo Dallas when he first came, and I didn't think there was really a drop-off. I thought they could have kept that undefeated streak going to this day. I don't know what it is that caused WWE to go away from him. Maybe they were micromanaging the ratings when he was on. There's obviously information they have that I don't. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm saying that WWE might have seen something with Bo Dallas they didn't like. I love Dallas because he's young. I like the character. He's the one guy where I would do the exact same thing they're doing with WWE, but I would just feature him more. And he's a guy with that character who he could be a mechanic. He's like my utility guy. I could see him in a tag team with any of these guys. I fantasy booked him in a tag team with any of these guys. Jason Jordan could be a protege. Big E could be a guy who went on a losing streak, but he's a big monster who was a great juxtaposition with Dallas. Same thing with Rusev. You know, all of these guys can have a good tag team with Bo Dallas. Dallas could compete with these guys as a heel. People could cheer Dallas, ironically, once he starts doing the Bo Leave gimmick enough. I really think Dallas is somebody WWE is missing the boat on because he's so young, because he's got a gimmick that is so unique in terms of being a heel. This gimmick I've watched a lot of old school WWE on WWE Network. This gimmick was exactly what babyfaces were doing, but they were serious about it. This is what Tito Sammartino was doing. This is what all those babyfaces were doing. But Dallas is doing that same thing in this era, and I mean, he could be a top heel. Eventually, he could transition to being a babyface, kind of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show type deal. I love Bo Dallas. I mean, what do you think about Dallas right now?
The version of him in NXT, where he got to play with that character a lot more, I was a lot more invested in. I feel like they really shrunk down who he was for the main roster, basically down to the catchphrase. But when he was allowed to, when he did that slideshow of his trick, and he did the banner race ceremony, all that stuff was great. And I think he's really masterful at working the crowd and those kind of things. And like you said, it is a really unique heel character, but I think that's something you need to do this day and age. You need to flip the script, because you can't put out Hulk Hogan today and ask, hope it gets over. So you have to do things a little differently, and I think that character does do that. He's also, I think, underrated in the ring.
Sure.
He's one of those guys that I feel like fans turned on too soon, and just dismissed too early. Something that he doesn't have to overcome, but I'm definitely a fan of his. I wouldn't have drafted him as high as you, but that's why I think it was a surprise.
Right, well, at least we know if WWE went out of business, at least the brothers would have somewhere to go work, because I did get Big E and Jason Jordan, and let me tell you, I would keep them apart. They would never wrestle each other. They would not have a group together. You can't just put guys together because they're skin color. I would have them do nothing with each other whatsoever. And now you also got into some snubs, which very interesting when I saw this list. I know it said Jack Swagger was not in the draft, and Ryback, Sandow, Swagger, Tyler Breeze, the Usos, Natalya, and The Miz, which is a very surprising list. I mean, again, it's 7 rounds, 5 guys. There's only so many spots. But of these guys, who do you think right now is the biggest snub?
Well, I was really surprised that Sandow didn't go to anybody, because he's a guy whose trajectory is pointed the right way. He's gotten this really crappy gimmick over, which is amazing. He's like what you were saying about Dallas. He's, you could put him at a variety of things. I think he'd make it work. So, and he's one of the better mic workers around. So to see him not get picked up was definitely unexpected.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you said that. And again, the Bleacher Report readers agree with you. They say 34% of them, by a wide margin, say that Damian Sandow was the biggest snub. And the second was Tyler Breeze with 26%, and then it's not even close. But I agree with Sandow, and it's funny you say that, because when it came to the Bo Dallas pick, it was between Dallas and Sandow for the same exact reason. 2 guys who I think WWE gave up on way too quickly, who I think are utility guys. They're guys who Damian Sandow could be a top heel. just as easily as he could be a tag team guy, just as easily as he could be a babyface. Such a broad range of talent, and like you said, take nothing and turn it into something.
You need a person like that who can take on different things, because some guys can only do one thing. I don't think Ryback can do anything other than, big, aggressive, slightly snarky powerhouse. Sandow, I don't know. You can throw him out a variety of things. He reminds me of I'm drawing a blank. Darso, Barry Darso.
Oh yeah.
Rico Man,
Demolition. No, that's a great comparison.
There's all kinds of other stuff, but whatever they needed him, he could do. So that's definitely a valuable thing.
That's a great comparison, Ryan. Now, with your team, with your draft, now that you have the promotion, I want to get your thoughts as to what type of vision would you have for them? Are these guys who you would just pretty much do what the WWE's already done because we know what their talents are? Or is there something that you think WWE's missing that you would capitalize on with these individual talents?
I would make sure to make Barrett a leader of a faction again. When he was with Nexus, I feel like that was a really good fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
He has that natural leader quality. So I'd like to see him lead a group of sorts again, and be a lot more prominent than he is. He hasn't really risen above the mid-card, and I think he could do a lot more than that. So that would probably be the biggest change. What about you?
I would, with the exception of Bo Dallas, again, my team are guys who I think, for the most part, were showed brilliance, flashes of brilliance when WWE featured them, but then they kind of got away from that. So I would try to capitalize on that. I mean, Bo Dallas would be the only guy who has the same gimmick he does now. Everybody else are guys that I think, if you push them on a linear route, I mean, Seth Rollins, obviously, he's at the top of the company right now. He's a guy who can have great matches, but I wanted a group of guys who I could mold into my vision. Guys who we're not really used to seeing them in the main event month after month after month yet. So I could get my own path there. So where Cesaro and Jericho are the two veterans who could work with the rest of the younger guys, A, give them great matches, B, give them credibility, and help them become main eventers. Because I was drafting for a list of guys I feel could potentially be top guys 5 years from now. When everybody gets out of the way, who's the next generation? The average age of my roster was 30. It was the second youngest roster. But it was generally with everybody. It ranged from 30 to 32. But I wanted really young guys. I think with the exception of Cesaro and Jericho, none of them are 30 years old. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a young roster of guys who I do see a lot of talent in, guys who I think I could book in my own vision.
Yeah, I think you could do a lot more with Big E than they're doing right now, for sure, at the very least.
Right, because
I don't know how you feel about the New Day, but to me,
can't stand him.
Like a head scratcher.
It is. I can't stand him only because, and if you saw NXT in its infantry, when it was early in NXT, Big E was the top guy there. He was the Seth Rollins of NXT. So he did a great job. They loved him. They loved that 5 gimmick he was doing. And you asked me about the New Day. I don't like it only because, and I came out with an article a couple weeks ago. It's one of my favorite articles I've ever written, talking about why they failed as babyfaces. WWE did not build characters. They didn't tell you why they were there, what they wanted. They were just 3 happy guys who clapped their hands. They already established with Bo Dallas that doesn't work anymore as a babyface. Why are they doing this? I couldn't, and I was watching it for months like, okay, obviously they're going to turn heel. They're just trying to get everybody mad so they can turn heel. They're serious about this. Like to the point where the fans had to tell them, New Day sucks. Which boggles my mind how the same company that has a Bo Dallas gimmick can think New Day is going to work in 2015.
Yeah, I totally agree. I kept thinking with the vignette that it was going to be more church-related in some way, which would at least make sense if they were somehow some religious cult or like just happy-go-lucky preacher guys. It would make sense. It was like, there are these guys who are really happy. And that's it. That's not nearly enough. And Big E, some of his strength is just being, if you see him in person, like he's being himself outside of off TV, he's a funny guy, and he's
very funny guy,
nerdy, charming. He's sort of like a Caitlyn or AJ type nerdy but cool guy.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because they travel together. He traveled with Caitlyn and AJ, and they were very close when Caitlyn and AJ were on the roster because they all had that same sentiment. So, and it's funny because WWE's putting him with the other black guys, okay, but you can't, that kind of rubs me the wrong way because it's almost like they're saying that that's their gimmick. They're just these black guys. They have nothing really in common. They're just guys.
Yeah.
And
or even the very beginning of that faction, when Xavier Woods was kind of dressed like Brother Love.
Exactly.
He was saying, we got to take this, we got to take charge, we got to take what's ours. That makes sense to me too, and I thought that had a lot more potential.
And that's another reason why I think it didn't work. And that was one of my reasons, is because they teased us with this great militant faction that was going to be Nation of Domination 2015. And then they completely went the other way. It seems so real. And if you look at the guys, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, Big E, they're like superheroes. They're not guys who you want to root for if you look at their pedigrees. Between them, they have 6 degrees. Xavier Woods is the most educated man in WWE history. PhD, Masters and Bachelors. Kofi Kingston, one of the greatest athletes in WWE history. If you look at his Royal Rumble highlight reel, that might get him into the Hall of Fame alone. Big E, one of the strongest men in the world. So they're one Human Torch away from being the Fantastic Four. They need to use that. Usually their accolades are things that WWE makes up. Like when they say, oh, Cesaro played all this rugby. They don't have to make anything up with New Day. There are 3 guys who are just uber talented, and they need to use that to say we're better than everything that's in here. Yeah, no, and we have the same sentiments on the New Day. It's too bad.
I think this, it looks like they're teasing, and he'll turn out, and we'll definitely see if they evolve and if they progress in a way, but it definitely needs to change.
Yeah, no, I like the fact, now I'm interested, that they're finally embracing the fact that they're heels. And it is fun. I was at Raw after WrestleMania. It is really fun to chant, New Day sucks. It's a lot of fun to do that. So I think they're onto something. They need to really use that to their advantage, and hopefully it works. And hopefully I look like a genius 5 years from now if Big E gets a huge push out of this. But the fantasy draft, WWE and NXT, currently on Bleacher Report. Check this out. It's a must-read. Ryan did a great job. I really do love this piece. I've actually gone over and I've seen it a couple of times, and I really like how all these teams shook down. I love my team, And, of course, I rank dead last. There's a poll of who had the best draft. I rank dead last, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Ryan, thank you so much. You got anything else you need to plug?
No, not today, man. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, thank you. I'll continue to put this on Twitter, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
You too, man. Have a good one.
Ryan Dilbert with Bleacher Report.
Everybody's eligible.